So when I put out this video in which I detailed the reasons why I believe Heavy Sasuke is one of the strongest characters in Shippuden, at least up until the Kage Summit arc, it got quite a bit of backlash from both fans in the community and creators alike. However, I noticed that almost all of the people who have a problem with my Heavy Sasuke scaling tend to repeat the same counter-arguments, and I kid you not, pretty much all of these counter-arguments revolve around Heavy Sasuke being weaker than the Sannin in some way. So basically, I decided to devote an entire video to proving why Sasuke just scales above the Sannin entirely. But before we can get into any of that, let's talk about the infamous Karin statement, the one that literally everyone brings up. So basically, in chapter 363, Karin says, "Pathetic, I can't believe you're the one who took down Orochimaru," and Sasuke replies to this by saying Orochimaru's illness made him weak, that's all. And some people interpret this to mean that Sasuke is admitting inferiority to Orochimaru and saying that he wouldn't be able to beat a full power Orochimaru, when that is not what is going on in this statement. So Karin is mocking Sasuke for his performance in his latest fight, and Sasuke responds to this by saying Orochimaru was ill and therefore easier to defeat. This does not mean that Sasuke is admitting that he wouldn't be able to defeat a full power Orochimaru. I believe my interpretation of this statement is more likely to be true because it comes from the most obvious and literal explanation of the text itself without adding any extra words or context whatsoever. However, even if you don't accept this, in the worst case scenario, it would still be an equally valid interpretation to the one presented in all of the counter-arguments that I hear, which would make them null and void. Now, I will be bringing up this statement a little bit later on, but let's talk about why I believe Sasuke from the beginning of Shippuden is stronger than Orochimaru and the rest of the Sannin by extension. So, whenever Sasuke confronted Orochimaru when he was sick in his bed, Sasuke easily pinned down base Orochimaru and forced the Great White Snake to emerge. Of course, right after this happened, Sasuke quickly dispatched of the Great White Snake and was actually disappointed in his performance in this fight. Now, Sasuke easily defeating the Great White Snake is extremely important to my scaling because I honestly don't believe that the Great White Snake is sick or ill like base Orochimaru is. Both Kabuto and Orochimaru attribute the sickness to the host body that Orochimaru is currently occupying, which is actively rejecting him and rotting away. And for Orochimaru to use his body snatching jutsu in the first place, he needs to eject himself from the previous body and use his Great White Snake form. So if Orochimaru is no longer in the body that is actively rotting away, then he would no longer be disadvantaged by the sickness. And of course, this is actually consistent with the interpretation I provided for Sasuke's and Karin's conversation. So I'm going to talk about this more later, but Sasuke's intention from the very beginning was to defeat Orochimaru, steal his power, and then go fight Itachi. So when I mentioned that my interpretation of their conversation was that Sasuke was saying that Orochimaru was easier to defeat because he was ill, this would still be true for the argument that I'm presenting. If Orochimaru was not sick and was actually at his full power, Sasuke obviously would have had a harder time forcing the Great White Snake to come out and therefore absorb Orochimaru, which was his goal all along. So, some of you may be preparing to bring up Suigetsu's statement in which he says that they had just now surpassed their mentors in reference to Sasuke and the rest of Taka. And some people use this statement to claim that even EMS Sasuke is weaker than Orochimaru, but this statement is just a blatant mistranslation. I've talked about this several times on my channel before, so it's not even worth bringing up. Now, Suigetsu does make several other statements in reference to Orochimaru that people like to use, but he's honestly just an unreliable source in general. Suigetsu wasn't around to witness Sasuke's fight with Orochimaru, and there's no proof that he actually knew how strong Sasuke was when he fought Orochimaru in the first place. It's shown that Suigetsu is very fearful and biased towards Orochimaru in this conversation, so he may not be thinking right. He has been traumatized by Orochimaru's experiments that he's been put through after all these years. On top of this, it's not in Sasuke's nature to refute what Suigetsu is saying anyways. He doesn't really care about what Suigetsu's opinions of him or Orochimaru are as long as he's getting the job done. Anyways, the Great White Snake is stated to be Orochimaru's true form, and Sasuke says that it is the result of all of Orochimaru's experiments over decades of research. Throughout all of Orochimaru's life, he was working towards obtaining this Great White Snake form. It is the perfection that allows him to achieve immortality. Since the Great White Snake is Orochimaru's true form, it's what he really is, it should still contain his soul and all of his chakra. Of course, characters in the Naruto-verse amp themselves and their jutsu with their chakra. That is basically their life force, their stamina. Therefore, if the Great White Snake possesses the exact same chakra as normal base Orochimaru, he should be just as strong and as fast as he is, of course without the backlash from the sickness. So based off this line of reasoning, the Great White Snake should be equal to, if not greater than, full power base Orochimaru, and Sasuke easily defeated this version of him. So that would just put Sasuke above the Sannin at this point in time. If you need even more proof, the body snatching jutsu that Orochimaru performs to keep himself immortal works by Orochimaru overflowing the victim's body with his own chakra. It's kind of like a chakra tug-of-war between a Jinchuriki and a Biju. Orochimaru just forces his way in and suppresses the victim's soul and chakra. Of course, it's stated and shown that Sasuke was able to pull out the Uno reverse card on Orochimaru and overpower his chakra in turn. And like I already explained, Shinobi and Naruto use their chakra to amp themselves and their various ninjutsu. Therefore, if Sasuke's chakra is just blatantly stronger than Orochimaru's, he's going to hit harder and run faster. However, there is one problem that I haven't talked about yet. Orochimaru got his arms sealed by the Reaper. So up until now, I've established that Sasuke is physically stronger and faster than Orochimaru even at his full power. However, it seems like the Reaper Death Seal cut off a piece of Orochimaru's soul, or at least the part that represented his arms. Now, the question is, would this affect his physical strength or speed in any way? Well, we've actually seen the scenario play out later on in the series whenever Minato gets both of his arms cut off during the war arc. So basically, Minato loses both of his arms to True Seeker orbs and he is unable to regenerate them, and as a matter of fact, whenever the Edo Tensei Jutsu is dispelled, we see that Minato's soul still doesn't have his arms anymore, so they were just removed from him entirely. And neither the databooks or anyone else in the series makes a note of Minato becoming weaker as a result of this, and there are no noticeable or visible changes to his performance during this time. So it seems like losing a piece of your soul in Naruto doesn't really affect how strong or fast you are, it's just a topic that we don't know enough about. So let me give you an example. Let's say that Orochimaru's soul is an apple pie, and the Reaper Death Seal cuts out a slice of that apple pie. Now, after this happens, there's obviously less pie than there was before, but the pie is still made of the same stuff. It's got apples, cinnamon, pie crust, and whatever the fuck else they put in an apple pie, but it would still taste the same and it's still made of the same components. So while Orochimaru has less soul and possibly even less chakra than he used to have, it would still be as strong as it's always been. And we know that the amount of chakra a person has doesn't necessarily equate to their strength. We see how Kakashi has less chakra than Naruto in the Land of Waves, but he's still considerably stronger than he is. It's the chakra potency that matters, how strong your chakra actually is. So basically, if the potency of Orochimaru's soul and chakra is as strong as it's always been, then Sasuke would still scale above the Great White Snake and base Orochimaru. But like, the concept of souls in Naruto is pretty ambiguous, but I still think I did a good job of making my interpretation to be very likely, which would just support my argument. Now, some people may try to reference this statement in which it seems to say that Sasuke waited for the right opportunity to take down Orochimaru. They'll say that my argument cannot be correct because Sasuke was just waiting for Orochimaru to get sicker so that he could beat him, but I have an alternate interpretation for this statement. I believe that it's equally likely that Sasuke was waiting for Orochimaru to be able to use his body-snatching jutsu again. We know that Orochimaru can only use it once every 3 to 4 years. Of course, it was Sasuke's goal from the very beginning to take in Orochimaru and absorb his powers, and he wouldn't be able to do that if Orochimaru is unable to transfer his body in the first place. My interpretation is supported by the fact that Orochimaru simply didn't have anything else to teach Sasuke. Like, Sasuke's final test was him facing off against a legion of shinobi without landing a single killing blow on any of them. He seemingly did this in base without any visible scratch marks or bruises on him. Orochimaru's tests and trials had simply become too easy for him to the point where Sasuke was training in the background without Orochimaru even knowing. It's actually stated that Sasuke's power was beyond Orochimaru's imagination. Sasuke had become so strong that Orochimaru couldn't even fathom or conceive his current power level. Of course, all of this ties back into Heavy Sasuke because he's just blatantly stronger than he was at the beginning of Shippuden. Now, some people may try to claim that Sasuke only received some of Orochimaru's attributes and abilities instead of an actual strength and speed boost. The problem with this is that the data books heavily imply that Sasuke got stronger as a result of absorbing Orochimaru. It stated that his poison resistance and regeneration abilities are only added benefits and not the true power that he gained from the White Snake. And I told you guys that I was going to talk about this earlier, but Sasuke tells Naruto and Sakura that neither he nor Orochimaru are strong enough to defeat Itachi on their own. However, immediately after Sasuke absorbs Orochimaru's power, he goes straight for Itachi. So this implies that Sasuke considers himself to be strong enough to take down someone like Itachi. However, Orochimaru himself admits complete inferiority to Itachi. He says that Itachi was the sole reason why he was forced to leave the Akatsuki in the first place, and we actually see a second fight between Orochimaru and Itachi later on in the series. Itachi easily defeats the 8-headed Hydra, which is stated to have surpassed Orochimaru himself. It's literally his strongest form. Therefore, if Sasuke finally considers himself to be ready to take on Itachi, he must also consider himself to be stronger than full power Orochimaru. And yes, while Sasuke doesn't know exactly how strong Itachi is, that doesn't matter as long as he knows that Orochimaru is weaker than him, which he does. Anyways, I've actually seen some people claim that Heavy Sasuke is nerfed and weaker than he was at the beginning of Shippuden because he's supposedly expending his chakra suppressing Orochimaru's essence. However, it's more likely that he's suppressing Orochimaru with his pure willpower instead, and let me explain why. Whenever Kakashi attempts to seal Sasuke's curse mark in part 1, he tells him that the seal that he placed is dependent on Sasuke's willpower and will only work if Sasuke has the will to make it work in the first place. And we actually see that this seal is never removed until Sasuke fights Itachi, in which he has Orochimaru and the curse mark removed from him entirely. Therefore, as long as Sasuke has the will to suppress Orochimaru and the curse mark, the seal will simply do it for him. He doesn't have to expend any chakra. And the reason why Sasuke lost control and let Orochimaru bust out of him during the Itachi fight was because he simply didn't have the willpower to suppress it anymore. Sasuke had just witnessed that his strongest jutsu, Kirin, was unable to defeat Itachi, and Orochimaru was constantly whispering in his ear asking to be let out. So yeah, Sasuke shouldn't have to expend any chakra suppressing Orochimaru's soul and essence, but he should also still be able to tap into Orochimaru's power at any given time. And finally, there's one more argument that I'd like to address. People say that the Sannin are stronger than the 5 Kage who gave Sasuke a hard time at the Kage Summit, therefore Sasuke is weaker than the Sannin. And I actually used to use a similar argument to put the Sannin above the 5 Kage, but I've recently realized that it has quite a few holes in it. So first things first, the statements about Hiruzen and the Sannin being above the likes of the 5 Kage are pretty much exclusive to part 1 only. And there's actually only one statement in Shippuden that I could find about the Sannin being compared to the Go Kage, in which it said that they're actually equal to one another now. So based off of this change of pace, you could just say that the 5 Kage got stronger since part 1, and the statements about the Sannin being above them no longer apply. To further support this argument, it's actually stated that the 5 Kage who attended the summit were the most powerful ninjas in the world. In all fairness, by this point in the story, Jiraiya and Orochimaru were already dead, and while Tsunade was technically still alive, she was in a coma after the events that transpired in the Pain arc, so you could argue that it doesn't apply to the Sannin. However, the Pain arc happened like right before the Kage Summit, so this statement should still include Sage Naruto, who is blatantly stated and shown to be above the likes of the Sannin. So yeah, by this point in the story, the 5 Kage just have better scaling than the Sannin, so the counter-argument wouldn't even function. However, the statement that I previously mentioned may not actually apply to Sasuke. Of course, Killer B does make a statement saying that Sasuke is the strongest opponent he's ever fought, but by now most of you should know that this is actually a mistranslation. But my buddy Thunder God actually got this statement retranslated recently, so big shout out to him. According to this retranslation, B is saying that Sasuke is tied for first place as one of the strongest opponents he's ever fought. Obviously, this could be referring to Minato, but in this case, he's most likely referring to his brother, the Raikage. So basically, B considers Sasuke to be on a similar level to the Raikage based off what he's seen during their fight. Of course, I do believe that this version of Sasuke that fought B is actually weaker than Heavy Sasuke because Jugo states that he is noticeably physically weaker than he was before since he had lost the curse mark and he hadn't fully healed from his fight with Itachi yet. Anyways, the only thing that A possessed that actually gave Sasuke a hard time during their fight was just his pure speed, which the Sannin just don't scale to. Sasuke actually forced the Raikage to enter his version 2 state and begin using body flicker just so he could combat the Mangekyo Sharingan in the first place. And even with his speed advantage, it's still very possible that Sasuke would have been able to kill the Raikage if Gaara hadn't intervened. In conclusion, Sasuke's physical capability should scale above the Sannins entirely even before he absorbed Orochimaru, and he also has the hack's abilities to deal with them such as Genjutsu and Kirin. Of course, Heavy Sasuke would scale even higher than this, but if you want a more in-depth explanation of why I think he's so strong, feel free to go check out my previous video. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, feel free to leave a like on it, it really helps me out, and subscribe if you haven't already. We're almost at 3K, but other than that, I'm gonna catch y'all later. Peace!